When's the last time something moved you? Was it a flash of beauty? A twist of phrase? A bit of brilliance that blew your mind? What if you could move people like that? And what if you could do it with shapes, sounds, design, and movement? When it comes to motion design, we believe everyone deserves the chance to move from novice to superstar. So we've created an online place for that to happen, so no matter where you are, we're there too. We're opening up worlds of possibilities for our students, and we're kind of obsessed with doing it well. Our teachers aren't just skilled working professionals, they're also the top motion design experts in the industry. Our critiques aren't vague and generic. They're valuable insights about your work. Our classes aren't easy. They are intense and effective, a tidal wave of knowledge. And our students aren't faceless usernames watching talking head instructors. We're a tight-knit community of highly driven learners, filled with global collaboration, inspiration, opportunities, and plenty of fun characters. At School of Motion, we take a full art education, strip it down to the essentials, and supercharge it with real-world grit. And we're equipping our students to do amazing things for some of the best brands and studios out there. In fact, this thing you're watching right now, and even this, was made by School of Motion alumni. Now it's your turn to create something truly moving. And we're ready to help you do it. Because the things that move you forward, move us too. School of Motion. We're not just a school. We're a movement.
Hello, everyone. Kyle here. I'm one of the creative directors here at School of Motion, and it wouldn't be a live event without Zoom throwing me at least a little bit of a curveball, right? So the chat is wide open now. I see people pouring in from all over the world, which is always really exciting to see. So hello. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm just going to intro the show for a little bit while I keep seeing these attendee numbers go up. So today we're going to be talking about bringing your ideas to life. So in this field of motion design or motion graphics or animation or making videos or whatever you want to call it, right? At the end of the day, like the main thing we're trying to do is take an idea or a message or a story, whether that's yours or from a client that's paying you, and figure out a way to make that compelling so that other people want to watch that and absorb that message, right? And so, you know, when you do this, you have to combine storytelling and visual design and filmmaking techniques and animation and make that into a cohesive thing so that it's engaging and interesting. If you do this work already, you know that it can be a challenge, and it's hard to pull that all together. If you're new to this, welcome, first of all, and hopefully we can give you some really good pointers today so that maybe some of the mistakes that I've made, I've definitely made, we can help you not make those same mistakes and learn about how to do this process, how to make fulfilling projects for your clients or for yourself. And make them interesting and make people want to watch them, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about, right? If no one watches your stuff, what's the point? So hopefully we'll also talk a little bit about how our School of Motion courses can help you learn how to do these things. But the thing I'm most excited about is that our three talented guests here are going to be showing you how they have worked through this on some projects that they have done. And they're going to be showing you those real examples, and we'll all be talking about it. So we have a group of really smart, talented professionals here, and also me. So hopefully we'll have some really great stuff to tell you, and you'll learn a whole lot. Obviously, the chat is wide open here, and please, let us know anything that you have to say in there. If you have questions, you should use the Q&A pod. You should have another little thing down in your Zoom bar that says Q&A. And if you have actual questions that you want to ask us, that is a better place for them so that we can keep track of them and make sure that it doesn't get lost in the chat. I will address the number one question. Yes, this is being recorded, and yes, you can watch it later. It'll be the same registration link. It'll just be available, within a couple days as soon as we have a chance to probably make a couple very small edits and then put it up. So I'm sure someone else will ask that question again later, but that's okay. But if you have questions for me, for EJ, for any of our guests, please put them in the Q&A pod, and we will get to them, as soon as we feel like it makes sense. Okay, so with that, let's take a second and meet these folks that are going to be talking with us today. As I said, I am Kyle. I'm one of the creative directors here at School of Motion, and I've been a motion designer for something like 16 years. I kind of stopped doing the math at some point, but I've definitely got some years of experience to speak to some of this stuff, hopefully. And I know my friend EJ does as well.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. We got so many people in here already. Thank you for tuning in today. I've gotten to the point where I turned 40 recently, so I've stopped counting on all the numbers that keep going up. But yeah, I've been doing motion graphics, mainly 3D for the past, about 16. I'm just going to say 16 as well. But yeah, I've been mainly diving into the world of 3D, Cinema 4D, and all these other apps that we have to keep up on and be aware of. And now we got AI art and all this kind of crazy stuff. So this is definitely an industry that we all got ourselves into that is always changing, always evolving, always keeping us up on our heels. So yeah, really excited to see everyone's work today and chat about it.
Awesome. Coralie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So my name is Coralie, and I am a freelance motion designer and illustrator from Brussels, Belgium, which is also where I live. And I focus mainly on projects around sustainability and science communication and social impact. So I work a lot with NGOs, nonprofits, researchers, policy offices, but also with communication agencies and some design studios. So it's quite varied. And I've been, since this year also, I've been a TA for School of Motion, and I have been TAing the Design Kickstart course and the After Effects Kickstart. And it's been super fun because I did so many of the courses myself, and it has really kickstarted my own design career, or my motion design career. So it's super cool to have this loop back, and I think it's very fulfilling. And I am also really excited to be here today. So.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you. Roxy, how about you?
Hi, I'm Roxy Velez. I'm originally from Ecuador. I'm based in Berlin. I run Vexquisit studio. That's a studio working only for vegan brands and sustainable brands. What else can I say? Right now I'm in Ecuador. That's not Berlin. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I'm also a TA in advanced motion methods. Yeah, happy to answer any questions.
I see we have some other folks from Ecuador in the chat representing, so maybe we'll see one of them like waving in the background there if they can figure out where you are. Yusef, how about you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Yusef. I am originally from Iran. I grew up in Northern Virginia. I switched careers at 30. I had done communications the first time I went to college, and I worked as a reporter in DC for many years. And then I went to art school at 30, and that was 11 years ago. And I've been working at Comedy Central for the past 7 years, and also as a teaching assistant for the School of Motion for the past 4 years. And yeah, and I'll be sharing some personal work today. I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited about this. I really like doing these shows where we kind of put together a panel of people with different specialties and different stories, and just kind of let them show off what they do, because everyone kind of comes to this from a different angle, and a lot of times people are kind of doing it for different objectives, I guess, too. I mean, we're all making the same stuff, but it's always interesting to see how motion design and design skills and animation and sound design and all that stuff, we all have all this stuff like mixed up in this big blender in our brain, and how it turns into this awesome work that we do for things we care about and stories we care about. And like I said, hopefully those of you that are watching can pull some really valuable stuff out of this today. I'm going to start off, unless any of you have anything else to say here. I lost my chat windows because I'm covering stuff up. I'm going to start off with just a little bit of a baseline here. So especially if you're new to this kind of work, you might not think about just the steps that it takes to go from an initial idea to sort of bring something to a finished product, right? So let me just throw this at you here. Not share, slideshow. There we go. Like I've done. You'd think I'd done one of these things before. All right, here we go. The one without Zoom stuff over it. There we go. All right. So here is my project workflow. All right. So first of all, you think of a cool idea, right? And then you press that magic animate button. And then you're done, right? You cash the checks. So obviously I'm being a little bit cheeky here. As someone who's worked direct to client a lot of times, I think this is how a lot of people think the sausage gets made. And a lot of times a big part of our job is helping educate our clients on how the process actually works, because there's just a few more steps than this when you're really doing something, right? So you start off with an initial idea or a concept or maybe a client brief. That's either something that you want to communicate or something that a client has brought to you, and they think that you're super amazing and they want you to tell their story, right? So, most importantly, you're going to take a little time up front because you're doing this as a professional and you're trying to do this as to make money, right? So you want to make sure that you scope, how big the project's going to be, and you're all on the same page. You want to make sure that you're getting paid appropriately and they know what it costs, and probably have some contracts in place so that everyone is, everything's going to be fair for everyone and there's no questions later, right? That's a thing you definitely learn the hard way if you miss that step. And then, you probably want to start off with having a script. I like to do one with a lot of visual descriptions as well, because, this is a very visual medium. So sometimes the words themselves aren't communicating everything that it is going to be in the end product. Then a lot of times you might collect some visual references to kind of figure out the style you're going for. You might create what's called a mood board to kind of help communicate that to your client or to yourself if you're putting this together as a personal project. You might do some sketches. These can be super rough and crappy looking, but it's just to get your ideas down, right? And then maybe you refine some of those into some really pretty looking things, and helps you figure out how the thing's gonna look when it's finished. But you're just doing that on a few select moments. And then you might turn that into a storyboard. You might do this with the rough stuff too. And just lay out that whole script so that you actually know what's happening and what scene goes into the next scene and what happens in each one, and just all those major points, right? And then at some point in there, you're probably going to put together what's called an animatic, which is a very rough version. This is a thing that I wish I had done earlier in my career, because you can definitely go into After Effects or Cinema and just kind of start winging it. But if you take the time to plan out your project more in advance, it's always going to be better. So you're probably doing rough audio as part of this. Maybe you record yourself doing a goofy voiceover just to get the timing, and you find some music that works. Maybe it's not even final yet, but it just gives you the right flavor, right? And then you might start actually making a rough animation, maybe what's called a blocking pass. Just doing it rough, make sure everything has the timing, and you kind of figure out the big steps before you start refining stuff. And then you start refining it. And of course, through all this, you're making sure that you have some kind of schedule in place, even if it's just in your head, and you're getting approvals on these from the clients, and you're communicating a whole lot, right? This is the ideal. It certainly doesn't happen every project, but and I'm sure our guests will be showing us examples of these and times when some of these don't happen, and maybe sometimes when things go wrong if some of these haven't taken place. And hey, after all that, we're finally ready to actually animate, right? Not saying you have to do all these steps before you ever touch animation, but once you start putting these processes in place, it'll help. You're probably refining your audio here, getting better music. Maybe you have someone else that's doing that for you. if you need to do any compositing or editing. Sometimes you might not finish your project in your animation software. You might actually do a little bit of editing or post looks somewhere else. Finally, you present it to your client or present it to your mom, I guess, if you made it for yourself, whatever you want to do. There's always revisions, right? Even on personal projects and definitely on client work. And then, hey, you're finally done. But I mean, I think we all know that you should never use the word final because never put final on a file name because you've probably cursed yourself. And then, of course, you probably have to export the thing in like 5 different sizes because that's how the world works now. And then you might have to promote the thing or help promote the thing. And then you have to invoice and do the other like boring business stuff at the end. And then you have to post it on your portfolio and do a case study. And finally, you have to come and talk about the project on some silly live workshop for everybody. So hopefully that has been a good overview of some of the steps that at least I think are important to do for a project. But obviously I'm going to leave it to our guests to kind of give us some better examples. Do you folks feel like I forgot anything major there?
No, felt like a pretty cohesive list.
Good. Well, I was hoping that would be thorough, but also at least mildly entertaining. So hopefully I struck that balance a little bit. Okay, well, we ready to get into some actual examples here? I think so. Do we feel, EJ, do we have any questions that we need to address before we dive in here?
We do have some good questions coming in, but I think they'll be great to answer while we're in the midst of
perfect
discussion here. Yeah, but yeah, keep all the excellent questions coming. I've already answered 18, so I love the engagement. Keep it up.
Awesome. And so we will be answering some questions just through text if that's what feels appropriate. And then we'll definitely hold on to some of those. We'll keep them in our pocket until it feels like the right place to put those in the discussion. All right, well, first up, Coralie, I would love to see your awesome project and kind of have you talk us through how you made it.
Yes, so let me share my presentation with you. All good, everybody sees everything?
Perfect, yep.
Yes, so the project I'm going to be talking about today is called The Future of Fisheries, and it's an explainer video that talks about the growing risk for conflict around fisheries. And I've done the entire project myself. It's for a client, and I've done everything from script writing all the way to animation and sound. And I will take you through my entire creative process. So from the initial briefing with the client all the way to the final end result. And I'm going to focus a little bit more on concepts and on design because I have a short amount of time here. And I also think that those are key components to creating a meaningful visual communication tool. So let's start. I was approached by a sustainability researcher at the Stockholm Resilience Center with the question to create a visual communication tool to help make her research more impact in society. Often the researchers noticed that the research kind of stays in a bubble, stays in the academia world, and she really wanted to bridge that gap. When I'm starting a new project, I have 3 questions that I always want answered before we start. The first one is, what is the goal or the purpose of a video? So what is it that we want the viewer to know or to do after they have seen the video? And then there are 2 sub-questions leading from that. And the first one is, what is it that we're communicating? So what is the core message that we're actually trying to get across? And second to that, who are we talking to? So who is the audience here? Because if we're making a video for a teenager who lives in England, it might look super different from somebody who's working in the government in, I don't know, Ethiopia. So that's a really important thing to know. And I feel like having a clear formulated answer to these questions really sets me up for success from the start. And these are questions that I take to my clients and I discuss it with them. And I feel it's really important to really involve them from the beginning, especially with those type of clients, because they haven't always worked with visual design that much. They're not always familiar with the process. And like Kyle said, there is sometimes some educating that needs to be, or like taking them through the process and teaching them about that. And I feel like it really helps to involve them. And when I ask them these questions, I'm sometimes super surprised by how baffled they are by them and how they have never thought about them. So yeah, it does really work. And so for this project, these were the 3 questions or answers that we came up with. The goal of the video is to bridge the gap between the scientific world and the rest of society, and to really help this research make a wider impact. The core message was really to convey a sense of urgency around the growing risk for fishery conflicts. Basically, we need action and we need it now. And our video was mainly geared towards practitioners in the field and policymakers. So my role was really to visually translate the complexity of that scientific research and make it more digestible for the people without an academic background. So I often relate to myself as being kind of a visual translator almost. And so when the briefing is airtight, we can move on to the script and we can start building that. I like to do my own script writing when I can. Feels like I have a good grasp on the story from the start. And this stage with my clients is always a super tight collaboration because they are specialists in their fields and I am the specialist in communication. So we need each other to really build this story. And it's my job to transform the research into a compelling and engaging narrative that then reaches our goal. But researchers love words, like a lot. Like they work on projects for years. Sometimes they write lengthy papers, and it's actually a super big challenge to summarize that lengthy research into a short 2-minute video. So quite often that kind of makes me the word police, and I'm trying to build a narrative with as few words as possible, and they are trying to sneak in those mega lengthy sentences with a lot of big academic words. But that's why I have a lot of meetings with them in the beginning, and so we really ping pong on this. I make sure that we have a compelling narrative. They make sure that we stay on track with the science and it stays accurate. So it's a really tight collaboration in the beginning. And so once we have that solid script, it's time to move on. And the general advice is that you would lock your script at this point. And I tend to have a bit of a soft lock here. Of course, I want to make sure that we are ready for that next step. But I do want to keep a bit of flexibility for the script in the storyboarding phase as well. And this is because for me, the script still lives in quite a conceptual stage here. And I haven't spent much time thinking about visuals or design up until this point. And I really try to do that as well. So I really try to keep them separate. And so I really want the visuals and the script to work nicely together. So that's why I often have a hard lock only after the storyboarding phase. But that's not something I will tell my clients too clearly. I, of course, remind them that we have different stages and that that's very important for production process. And I don't want them to think that they can change the script whenever they want. So next up, we have art direction and storyboarding. And for me, these two go a little bit hand in hand. It doesn't make much sense to me to create a style and a color palette if I don't know what I'm going to be designing, and vice versa. So I usually tend to work on this a little bit simultaneously, and I also present them to the client simultaneously, because I've done it different in the past, and clients love the beautiful mood boards and the beautiful colors, but they have no idea how that's going to translate. So I feel like it helps to give them the story and the art direction at the same time. So let's talk about art direction first. So that's basically the look and the feel of the video, right? So I create a style direction and a mood board that really speaks to the vision that I have for the video. And when I'm creating a mood board, I try to be super specific about the images that I put in. So I don't want to have too many pictures. I really try to pick the ones that feel on point for a certain part of the style. And I also like to put in a few words here and there to help to guide the clients to what it is exactly that I think is so interesting in this particular image. I'm going to take a sip break.
It's awesome so far.
Yeah. And so for this project, I use a lot of abstract shapes because I feel like they are great to conceptualize complex ideas, and they work very nicely together with metaphors, which is something that I use a lot in my work. And I also included a lot of organic textures to create depth and to really help narrate that story. So next to the mood board, I also create a color palette. And because of the serious message of this video and the research, I really wanted the color palette to be strongly grounded into reality. So I worked with earthy tones, combined them with some solid blues, and then I had some greens and a yellow to emphasize things if I need to. Okay, let's talk about storyboarding. I really try to immerse myself fully into the topic from the start. So I will ask my clients for as many resources as they have. Usually that's a lot of lengthy papers or references to look at, but I really try to learn as much about the topic as I can. And then when I have all of that input, I start sketching. And it's basically throwing ideas at a paper. It's super rough, like you can see here. And I'm basically just trying to keep up with my mind. And I have this thing where I can get really lost into details. So if I don't do it this rough, I am somewhere else very soon. So I need to be vigilant and really keep it rough here. But I also like to have time to storyboard. I like to think things over, to like let it sit for a couple of days, then come back to it. Does it work? Does it not work? It's kind of like this big puzzle that I want to finish or want to solve. And I know it's a huge cliche, but inspiration comes from everywhere. I don't feel like it comes at me when I'm sitting and starting to draw. It's kind of in the way I live my life and the things I see and the people I talk to and the books I read and all of those nice things. Some of the scenes are put back very quickly and I have an idea, I try it, it works, great, bam, we move on. Other ones, they kind of break my head and I have to try and it takes a while before I get it right. And in this project, this was that scene. And the VO here, so the voiceover, talks about quite a big vague words, socioeconomic and ecological factors. That's basically an umbrella term for a whole of other complicated stuff that's under there. So this was quite a challenge to get right and to really feel like it was accurate to the science, not too simplistic, but simplistic enough. And I felt like metaphors were a really good tool here to break down that complexity. And in general, I think metaphors are great because they can really translate something and create an emotional connection or simplify something and really help you communicate things. But when you're working with them or with symbols or icons, I do feel like it's very important to check in with yourself regularly because sometimes something might feel super recognizable or familiar for you, but it might be very differently understood in another part of the world. So when you work with them, just make sure that you ask for a lot of feedback from different perspectives. Okay, and so once the script is visualized, scene by scene, everybody's happy with the storyline, we move on to design. And I usually start with 2 or 3 frames that feel significant for, so here we see a run through from the first ugly sketch to the design. And I usually start with 2 or 3 scenes that feel significant for both the style and the story. And I show those to the clients to show them what the video or what the design will look like with the art direction that we chose. And when I get an okay on that, I move on, I create all of the other ones, and I put everything in full color. When I have all of the finished frames, I also put together a boardomatic. And a boardomatic is ideally an update from the animatic that you make in the storyboarding phase, which I didn't show here. And these tools help you to look at timing and pacing of the video. And I feel like the animatic is very interesting for my workflow. It helps me to look at the things. But the boardomatic is very interesting for my clients because right now the designs are finished. And especially for my clients who are not working in the design studios, who are not familiar with all these things, this is the first time that they kind of get a feel of what this video is going to look like. And I find that very helpful. Okay, when all of that is done, it's time to animate. Yes, it's time to animate. I have a little bit of a hiccup here in my presentation. That is not what I wanted to do. Anyway, yeah, so in general, my clients they're not so involved in this stage of the process. They don't really care about those crazy eases. I feel like often they also don't know the difference between good and great animation. So this is usually more of a stage that I do on my own. It's me tucked away at my computer, with the headphones in my ears and yeah, just working in that graph editor and animating away. Usually that's a lot of fun, but let's be honest, there are a lot of different emotions that are at play when it comes to working in After Effects. At least for me, it's always a roller coaster. So when all of that is finished, I move on to the final stage, which is the audio for the sound design. And this is where we pick the right voice to narrate our story. We pick the right soundtrack to really help set that mood for the video and to really help the viewer to connect on that emotional level, which is super, super important. And that's it. Then it's a wrap. The video is done. It's ready to be used. And this video in particular, this was made also to gain traction together with the research and the paper. And it got picked up by some really important players in the sustainability field, the Stanford University, for instance, and the marine biologists. And my client really said it made a difference. And I think that's really why I'm so passionate about these kind of projects, because the scientific world is doing so much important work, but it needs to get out. It needs to go to the right people who then can make decisions in our world and really help drive that change. So I honestly think there's a lot of great opportunity here. And I would like to end by showing you the final video. And I think, Kyle, you're going to help me with that?
I sure am.
I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. That was great. I really loved how thoughtful that was, and seeing those details on those early stages of the process that are so important for making sure that you're sort of getting everything right before you start doing all the stuff that we think is fun, animating and designing and stuff. Like, if you get too far ahead of yourself, it's doesn't matter. All right, I've got this here. Let's.
The world is changing, and so is the ocean. Due to multiple stressors, such as climate change, overfishing, and poor resource management, the ocean suffers a great deal, as do the living species within it. One of the consequences of these unprecedented changes is growing tension over fisheries. Expert data shows that a multitude of stressors is responsible for sparking conflict at sea. Rising nationalism, overfishing, climate change, and inadequate fishery regulations are just a few of those stressors. In some regions, a number of these stressors have already risen to the surface and are already causing ripple effects. Whether they act on a local or global scale, these drivers can further influence each other, making this a complex and layered problem. The ocean's fishery resources play a major part in our food supply. When fish populations become threatened, our global food security will be challenged. If we don't act now, the conflicts that may emerge might put not only fish stocks, but also people at risk. The decisions we make today can lead to a dramatically different tomorrow. Now is the time to reduce risk at sea. Whether you're a policymaker, a concerned scientist, or an engaged citizen, we need all hands on deck. Because only by standing together can we protect our fisheries and avoid conflict at sea. The ocean needs you, because if she is at risk, we are at risk.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm seeing A ton of comments. Everyone seems to love that and really loved your presentation, and I did too. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Of course. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot.
I know that we've got some in the chat, but I'd love to turn it over to the other folks on here if you want to react to any parts of that or ask any questions of your own.
I really love how this section where you said, okay, the client is the expert on that, and then you're the expert on storytelling, how those both merge. And I think that's very important to communicate to the client, that they need to be involved, because if they just award you the project and then they're back in a month, that's not usually going so good.
And I've been on projects where they kind of assume that I know everything about a topic, and then they're baffled if something doesn't work. And it's like, well, we both have our fortes and we need to collaborate and bring it together. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And having them like, and also the part of the script where you make it not that 10 words stay as 10 words, but you like summarize like that. Yeah, that's like the constant, why they say like, why does the script take so long? I'm like, because of you. Yeah. So very nice.
We got a question I think follows up nicely there from Andreas. What's the best approach to start communicating a very visually abstract idea for a motion design piece, especially if I want to make sure the client likes the concept before I move forward?
Sorry, just so I get that right. So when the style is very abstract, how do I communicate that?
Well, I think maybe it's just a good opportunity to kind of, you had a lot of like good metaphors in there. Maybe just kind of react for a second about, how do you kind of think through when you need to communicate like a big concept and turn it into something like circles bouncing down the steps?
Yeah. So that's exactly why I like to have time to think about these things, because it's not just dog walks in the park and that's what's saying in the script. Like it's a lot more vague sometimes what's saying in the script. I think I have a natural love for metaphors also in my language. I use a lot of idioms and stuff, but I try to, I am not a scientist, so I'm already looking at it in a different way. And I think that helps. I am interested, but I don't have the knowledge. So I'm also trying to think, how would I understand this? And that's usually my first thing. Like, how could I break this down into something that I can understand in a 2 or 3 second frame? But it's really not that easy to just like sit down and be like, yay, circles were great. That works. Like that scene took me a long time. And also sometimes when it doesn't, I also have discussions about it with the client. If I'm really breaking my head over something, I try to have a conversation about it, have them talk more about the subject and see if I can pick something that then I can use in my design language. But it's definitely a process. I try to look, of course, like everybody, I try to look at different things and how things, seeing other metaphors being used. That also helps, and just having like a bank of input there. But it's not a straightforward process, but I think I think that is why visual communication is so powerful, because we're not bound to the rules of reality, and we can say, yeah, these circles represent those socioeconomic factors, and that's why this works. I hope that spoke to the question.
Yeah, I think it definitely did. Expertly answered. We had a couple people asking about what the timeline for this project was like.
Good question. So ideally, if I would be only working, maybe I would say 2 months, 3 months. In reality, this project took me 10 months or 11 even. And that is mostly because of the way time works differently in academic worlds. So it's just a very different way of working. They don't have the same approach to time that we do. So everything takes a lot longer. They're usually also writing the paper sometimes when they start working with me. I have clients who kind of use me in like dialogue to also, they're like, okay, we can talk to you and then you can tell us if you understand it and then we can put it in the paper. So there's a lot of discussions and they generally want a lot of time to think about things. I have tried to put on very tight production schedules, dates and stuff. It never worked. So I am kind of taking that into account from the start. And yeah, I just have to have a certain new, another level of patience when I work in this field. It's usually also very bureaucratic or hierarchic. There's different people involved. They might not be, yeah, it's a different timeline. So if I would be making the shots, maybe 2 months, 3 months. If they are making the shots, who knows? So, yeah. And
I take from that you did all or most of the work on this.
I did all of them.
Correct.
Yeah, I did all of the work. So from the initial script writing all the way to the end. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We had a couple people asking, this is a quick one, but asking what tool you were using for your presentation.
Aha, wow. That's a good question. That means it looked good. Google Slides. Yeah, just cool. Google Slides.
And then I think
it's just for videos. It's a bit wacky for videos.
Agree.
It's, you saw me hicking up with the animation there. Yeah. But,
and then I think a couple folks were asking about what you were using to make your board-o-matic and work with your storyboards.
Sorry, my internet broke up too.
For your board-o-matic. Are you just doing that in After Effects or?
Yeah. Maybe some people would say it's editing, so it would be better in Premiere. Mm-hmm. I'm not a Premiere person, so I do it in After Effects. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And I know there is a product called Boords, BOORDS, maybe there's 3 O's, that a lot of folks like for storyboarding. And I believe that has an animation feature built into it too. So that could be a good option for folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me see. I think there's maybe take like 1 or 2 other questions here. Let's see. We did that. Any of you have another question while I look for like kind of a good final one here?
Come on, guys, don't hold back, please.
I would ask just as far as like, because how long have you been in the industry, like motion design, doing motion design?
Yeah, I kind of missed that in my bio, I realized. So I studied graphic design around 12 years ago. So I've been a designer for a long time. But then I started doing animation 5 years ago, and literally with School of Motion. The first time I opened After Effects was on After Effects Kickstart. So yeah, around 5 years. Yeah.
That's amazing. Go ahead.
Go ahead, EJ.
I was gonna say, so like you've probably worked at studios and all that stuff to learn all of these processes and all this organization, or did you just kind of figure it out on your own? Or
I kind of I haven't worked at a motion design studio. I went freelance. I was freelancing as a graphic designer when I was learning animation, and then I shifted that into motion design. So I've been as long as I've been animating. And I figured some stuff out on my own, but if I'm honest, I mean, School of Motion has also been a big part of it. I think Explainer Camp is a really great course that it really taught me, because yeah, I was like, okay, this looks great, I can do these things, but I had no processes. And I felt like in that course, it really helped me to give me practical tools and systems that worked. And I think to this day, there's still a lot of stuff from that course that I use in my processes. And then of course you adapt it a bit, right? You set it to your own taste and liking and what works with the clients and stuff. But yeah, I think it's a combination of making a lot of mistakes and yeah, doing courses to help you and talking to people, of course. I think, yeah, maybe I should, I mean, also, I think, yeah, the community, that's a huge part of it. I joined also Sailors Full Harbor around the same time I started animating, and that has been so great. Just because I didn't know any people here. I had moved just back from Stockholm into Brussels, and I was just like, where is everybody? And then online, it was really great to just ask people that do the same stuff, stupid questions. And that really helped. So Yeah, making motion design friends, and now here in Brussels is also a great community. I'm sharing an atelier with 10 mega talented people, and that's also really helpful. Yeah, community, big one. Yeah.
Agree. I'm sort of jealous of people who are getting into motion design now versus 15 years ago, because it seemed like it was a lot harder to have community then, and I feel like it's easier to learn all the software now too. But yeah, it just seems like it's so much easier to connect with other people. So that's my little soapbox moment. No matter where you are in the world, there probably are other people doing this somewhere close to you. So you know, there's quite a few communities. You know, I think the School of Motion one's great. Even if you're just getting on Twitter and looking for other motion designers, try to connect to the people, and like, because probably your friends don't, you know, want to nerd out about the new After Effects plugins, but there are definitely other people who do. I saw a good question here that I think will kind of lead us into our, I've got a segue question coming up here, but someone was asking, is it necessary to know graphic design to be a motion designer? I'll say no, because for the first part of my career, I definitely did not. And you come from the totally opposite side. So I just thought I'd like to have you sort of react to that real quick.
Yeah, interesting question. I think it really depends where you want to go with your motion design career. I mean, there's so many directions you could go: 2D, 3D, focus on design, focus on animation. I mean, that's the first thing. I think you can have a perfectly fine, super great career as an animator and don't know design at all. But I think if you're gonna do these projects like the one I showed you now, where you're gonna be the one doing both, I think design is necessary. It's vital. I mean, graphic design, we can debate about that. Although graphic design, I mean, has all the basics of like composition and type and color theory and those kind of design principles. So I don't think it should be necessarily graphic design, but you need to have solid design principles for sure. I think, I mean, for the kind of projects I did, so what I said was like, my clients, they like animation, but they will not see that crazy ease that I spend maybe 3 hours on, but they will see the design. And I think that's, for me at least, a lot more important with my clients, that I get my design right over animation. I will not, this is literally, I'm talking from my own clients and my own experience. But yeah, I think having solid animation, having solid design is vital if you want to do the project from design to animation. Yes, I would say.
Cool. So go ahead, EJ.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's all about, you know, just all the steps that you've shown and the storyboarding and the rough sketches. I've saw in the comments how like they felt better seeing that, like, oh, that's okay to just do very rough sketches. They don't have to be like, you know, comic book quality, you know, Marvel, you know, sketches or anything like that. You know, it's just as important as knowing graphic design or anything like that. It's just knowing how to communicate ideas visually to a client or to the customers or whatever, because if you don't know how to talk to a client or communicate your idea, you're going to have a rough time, no matter if you're a super talented artist. I know very super talented artists are very stubborn and are not great with communicating to clients, and they have a bunch of headaches. So, and we all also live in a world where we're all self-taught. We're all taking, you know, watching tutorials or doing school of motion classes, because we realize that, wow, I've been doing okay, just kind of hacking things together and not knowing animation too well. But you know, when you go to a point, Coralie, when you're handling everything, you're like, okay, well, now I need to up my game in this area, this area, this area. But you really display a lot of those soft skills that are super important, which is communicating to clients, making sure that the clients along and with the idea and along the entire length of the project, because you're helping each other out. You're not wasting time, you know, doing 5 different concepts or anything like that. Like, and actually I saw a question like that, is when you worked on this project, did you have a pretty easy time just kind of communicating ideas off the top, or did you have to do multiple rounds of storyboards, or did you try to like, you know, work where you're funneling and never having to duplicate efforts at any step of the process?
I definitely had reworks for sure, definitely on that on the storyboard. So what I said about the metaphors and some of those scenes, that I really have to let them sit and build that puzzle. I had for that scene with the circles that fall down, I think I had maybe 20 different tries, and I couldn't break it. Nothing felt right. I wasn't happy with any of them. And my client was kind of like, yeah, I think this works. I know I don't think it works. It needs to be right. We have like, you know, 7 seconds here in the scene. It needs to communicate that exact thing. So I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that it's all on one bed. Absolutely not. A lot of reworks. But I think for me, that's where I like to have the time, because working through that story and puzzling through, and I know not that's ideal, right? We don't always have that in every project. Sometimes it's go, go, go. But when I can take the time, my stories are a lot better. I don't fall back on tricks. I can really, you know, find that perfect metaphor or visual. Yeah. So did I digress? I feel like I digressed on your question.
I think that was good.
Yeah.
So I am going to ask a question that I saw a couple people put in here, and it creates a fantastic natural segue as well, which is a couple variations on how do you focus on clients that make a social impact, like doing projects that you care about and believe in while still making a living. And obviously, Roxy, that's going to be teeing it up for you in just a minute here too.
Yeah, super interesting question. So for me, it was a very conscious choice to get into these type of projects. I was working as a graphic designer in the fashion industry before, and I care a lot about the climate, and I'm really passionate about all of that. And I was just working against myself, and so I was like, okay, I have skills. How can I use them in a way that are geared towards my own values? So that's how I got into it. But it's not like when I started, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna look up sustainability clients and they're gonna be there and there's gonna be work, because I feel like there is work and it's growing a lot more. But it's definitely, especially for the researchers and the scientific kind of clients, it feels it's still a bit new. It's very new to them. Most of them, if they include like a colorful infographic, they are like, we did it. Yeah, like we're really cool. So they have actually not thought about video or visual communication tool that much. So it's been a long process for me to getting like a foot in the door and building the right network, talking to the right people. And it's been slower, I think, than if I would have emailed some design studios. But there's also some agencies that really focus on these type of projects. And policy offices. I am lucky to be in Brussels. Brussels is the European heart of politics. So there's a lot of NGOs here, policy offices that are, focused on that. But it's definitely been a process. I had and sometimes still have some corporate clients or other clients. It's not my 100% right now, but I think maybe I'm like around 80, 90 maybe. But it's been a gradual buildup. So it was a choice, and then I took some years to get there. And I feel like once you get a foot in the door, most of them you're in, because I'm maybe it's similar for you, Roxy, but I feel like those companies or like those nonprofits, for instance, or they really want you to be with their values, and they really want you to care about and understand what they're really talking about. So once you're in, I feel like that kind of, you're kind of set in that way. Does that answer?
Yeah. Roxy, do you want to kind of follow up on that and maybe sort of lead that into your work and what you do?
Sure. I mean, I think it's really about when I these past years that I started Vexquisit, it's been about rebuilding a network, a newer network. It's getting to know for us the clients that are all about veganism, plant-based, that are defending all animals, that don't want them harmed. So like, it's like really easy to go hang out with them because we are all aligning in their values. We all got to like, we're all excited for the new vegan products because like, oh yay, there's like more on our side, even if it's slow, but it's only growing. So I've gone to events, traveled to events to meet people, and people talk to each other, and they're like, oh yeah, you should meet Roxy. She's got this motion design studio, or well, they say marketing studio, because some people don't understand what is motion design. So that is a bit of a challenge. And I did have some agencies that I knew before. They kind of were the ones that got me started, giving me some clients that were about environmentalism, like some years ago, saying like, oh, you want to do good things. We're gonna give you this client that can't afford this huge agency. So kind of like that. And we've had also environmental clients, since they say like it goes hand in hand about not eating animals and the environment. And so it has been a process. It has not been overnight, as Caroline said. And it's always about getting to know more people, maybe not just traveling, even on LinkedIn. So it's not about just waiting until that event. Email people, talk to them, and if your values align, you will click. Even if your values are about, I don't know, a mountain, like whatever, like you'll click. It's like very natural it becomes very easy. It's like talking to other motion designers. It's super easy, right? So like you talk about other people that are also all in for animal rights, then you're vibing,
Awesome. Well, I know that your project is all about sort of, it's kind of about marketing your studio to those clients, right?
Yeah. And in this one, I don't have the side that is like showing to the client because I was the client. So I was directing it, but I have an example of how a schedule would look like for another client, because I think that's interesting for people to understand about the process, because I align with what Caroline said. It is really all about the process. It's about following from script till sound. It's like a waterfall. And so I could get started showing.
Yeah. Let's take a look.
Should we start with sharing the video, or
that is up to you. If you'd like me to show it first, then I can totally do that.
I think it's better to show first the video, just
okay,
because it's more abstract at the beginning what I talk about.
Okay. Do you want to give us just like a quick, like a 2-sentence context of what we're about to watch?
Yes, this is our manifesto for our studio. It is what we use on our landing page. So what our clients see first, that it speaks about who we are. And what we try to do in the video is to show our skills and our personality. And that's a marketing tool.
Great. All right, let's take a look.
What kind of world would you like to create? At Vexquisit, we want what you want. A world where love for all animals, respect for our planet, and sustainable eating habits are the norm. The world is waking up. Mainstream industries are making space for vegan products and welcoming the global shift towards plant-based living. It's an exciting time to be in business, but we know that marketing vegan products to the masses can be tricky. What language works best? What content is the most effective for your target audience? This is why brands like yours deserve world-class design and marketing by professionals who are equally passionate about your mission. At Vexquisit, we combine the power of collaboration, partnerships, and exploring new technologies to supercharge your online and offline presence so you can inform, enlighten, and inspire your audience. Through video production and carefully strategized motion design, we build a clear, effective concept that helps you create buzz for your brand. No matter where you are in the world, and no matter what your project size, we exist to help forward-thinking, compassionate minds like yours plant seeds that encourage society to embrace kinder habits. Wherever your imagination goes, we can meet it there. Nothing is off limits. So let's push your brand further than you ever thought possible. Don't hold back. Get in touch today.
Super cool.
Thank you. So I share my screen now. Right. So this presentation is actually on our website on projects under our manifesto. And yeah, so you can go back and see later if you have any questions. So this is what our clients will see. This is a case study, and it also serves as an extra example on how we work, and serves as marketing for us. So we have like what we're talking about. Like, are you ready to supercharge your vegan marketing? In our case, this is made by a team. It's not just me. And I thought when I first started Vexquisit, I thought I will do everything and I'll just get some time, like one little person to help me. And from project one, I started like it was, okay, no, this is so much. I enjoy so much having the expert in character design do it. Otherwise, my hands were like really weird once I draw. Or I don't know, I just love the power of collaboration, of having specialists at each role. So we had our script writer, Emily from Australia, everybody's from everywhere around the world because we work remotely. American, Samuel Fleming, Brazilian, Ronaldo Serrano, illustrator, Nati, she's in Italy, she's also from Brazil. I feel like Brazilians are trying to invade Vexquisit because they keep on falling here. Like, I'm like, are you trying to take over? So we keep on hiring Brazilians all the time. And our sound designers, you have heard of Michael Fakish for sure. He's doing amazing work in Germany, and he was like really liking our mission, and he makes time for a little animation videos while he's doing like, I don't know, Audi stuff. And we had some interns. There's some audio happening of someone.
Oh, maybe just me typing, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay, thanks, Kyle. Yeah, scope of work, what we've done internally, it's the creative and art direction, the visual concept development, that is the storyboarding, the motion design, so also like how things will move, the illustration, and the animation production, and sound design. Even though the sound design comes at the end, we like having the voiceover right before the animation, just to kind of like play with it as we animate. We had an award for this one, and hopefully a new one comes soon. I don't know.
Congrats.
Fingers crossed. Thanks. Gonna turn on some candles in my name, please. Okay, so yeah, so we speak about the execution. That it's we're trying to do storytelling here. We're trying to translate our excitement about the vegan industry, and that we are with them. We know as a fact that the future is vegan. Maybe it's not in 5 years, but maybe in 50 years, maybe in 10 years, if we still have a planet, of course. And yeah, our values, we want to make sure that it's very clear that we're all about love for all animals, the respect for our planet, and sustainability to have it. And it's funny that this has resonated a lot, the respect for our planet. So we have our clients that are not necessarily vegan, but they have their environmental things, and they like that we are aligned on this. So it's not like strictly that we are going to have only 100% the vegan product as a client, but we've had like something that it leaks into it. And yeah, we, you know, as long as what is leaking is not asking people to harm animals, we would take the client. Right. So the art direction, look and feel. Here we have, I did this stylescape actually for our rebrand, and I thought it works great for the video to kind of shows more like what the spirit of our brand is. So this is not exactly a mood board. I normally do a mood board for clients, but in this case it was more like for branding, and it's because it's kind of a layer higher. I just took this one, I figured why do we need a mood board now? Right, so now we have here, this is something that I gave my illustrator, so she would do the beautiful illustrations that you guys see on the video. And you see, we have like this kind of shapes. We like the animals, vegetables, lots of plants, everything that would go hand in hand, and how we want it to be fun and vibrant. We try to also stay away from the cliche of green and the leaves for vegan, because that has been way overdone. And we try to tell our clients to do the same, because yeah, one day, you know, you can't have all the brands have a leaf, or like have leaves around and green, all ads be green. It would be very boring and they would not stand out. So the goal and an opportunity for this project was to communicate our values and speak about who we are, and opportunities is to that they could see the level of animation that we can do. And that's why also in the video there was a part of there was some part that had also live action, like the hands, so the compositing, and to strengthen our studio branding. So after the story, the script is approved, we move forward to the storyboarding, and that's when we start to sketch. Also, roughly nothing pretty. Picasso is not hired here. Really, like, it doesn't matter how it looks. And it's the core, because the process is an onion. It's like each little step needs to build up to the next. And as Caroline said, it is also flexible. Like, we had some scenes extra that at the end we had to kill because the voiceover was going too fast and they were just not fitting. And so it's kind of like this at the beginning, the lock is a little bit loose. Although when we work with clients, we don't want to tell them this, otherwise they would feel like everything is loose and we can just change everything. We can just make exceptions, you know. And here we're just having fun, dumping ideas and to see what sticks, and some stuff it even doesn't happen at the end. I'm gonna show right now, I'm gonna jump to boards where I have the storyboard for this project. And yeah, as you can see, it's all super rough. Like, this also didn't really happen, but this one also didn't happen. But yeah, we have here kind of like the light and the bus, and we have sometimes we don't need to go and try to sketch a kid hugging a sheep, right? Just a picture there of the reference for this scene that had the sheep being hugged. And yeah, if something was part of the concept, I just place it there and try to keep it very sketchy for this stage, just to make sure that the ideas make sense. And it's good to see it all together too. You know, I love this tool. I've been using this since 2017. It's great. Okay. And then for the illustrations, once we have the style, we start to illustrate everything. And we make sure also that on the illustrations, we portray diversity, because something also that I noticed in the vegan movement, I think is really, really cool, is that they want to it's about justice. So it's about justice for everyone. And also they want the diversity and like not gender stereotypes, and all of this is always trying to figure out what else is wrong with the world, right? And even though it's not like our cause, on our communication, it is important that we avoid little things, that we keep on learning about how to be better humans. And for the animals and for the animals, it's always very cool to get inspired in existing animals on a sanctuary. This is Cornell. He lives with Esther, the wonder pig. So he was our inspiration. Yeah, the link should have opened differently, but okay. And yeah, this one was, I think, was here. You see, super tiny. Yeah, and here I have the version 3, where you can see the more like the oops, how the final look. This got lost, didn't happen. It was too fast. But because it's for us, it's for branding, we use it somewhere else. I use it in some keynote presentation or something that I give to the clients. This actually got replaced as well, but it was, yeah, about to see the different ethnicities also represented. Here's the colonel, his name. And yeah, oh, this wasn't the last one. Let me get on the version 5. Yeah, here we see already the ones that got lost, all of the little illustrations. This was super detailed. This animation took a bit of a long time. I think it took 2 months, but also because it was for us, I could pause it anytime for client projects. So that's why I don't really have even though I stress having a timeline, but in this case, we have this flexibility. We didn't have an emergency or something to do. And we had also 2 interns at that time from School of Motion that helped us. This is scene. So yeah, they were really great help. And here is the next scenes. At some point, I also jumped to help on the animation, on the design, because I was really excited. And it's really good for me to have the motion design background because I can jump in and move any layer or like tweak some design or something. Most of it was done by the illustrator, but here this part, I actually wanted this compositing with the cone, with the real cone, and kind of to show a little bit of not just illustration. And yeah, this frame, it was not necessary to to illustrate it because we didn't know how After Effects was going to splash it. So it just kept it like that. And yeah, it's always important to think of the CTA, because even though the animation could be great, it is really important to get the person not thinking, wow, that was a great animation, but we want to always say what to do at the end. After they are impressed, they would more likely take on like the advice that that we do after we hypnotize them. Yeah, there are some illustrations in bigger size. Yeah, I love that one. I saw some love on the chat for that one. Also one of my favorite ones. And it was also fun to do. Yeah, the doggy, and yeah, this was also fun. Also the reference, long one. It was built super wide just to kind of go with the camera. And yeah, with animation, we try to reinforce the friendliness and the charm of the key elements from each scene. And to, as I said before, keep the journey flowing and keep the audience attention. And we put here on the case study a bit of animations just to kind of remind them what they've seen. And here when we have this the animation, we have the voiceover, and then on each review we are like, we should pause this, like just make sure that the elements are working with each other, that it's not like visuals competing with voice, but like make a little pause and or not, or like make sure that the VO is exactly represented on the screen, like not and if it's too abstract, give some space for the audience to digest. And with the music and the sound effects, that is the best part. Like I know that some people like to add the music at the beginning, but I'm afraid that at some point the client is going to get tired of the music and they're gonna say, I can't hear this anymore. Like because I'm like, it works both ways. And I love that at the end, my sound designer, he's like crazy expert. So he goes and says, hey, Roxy, I have these 5 tracks. I think these 2 work best. And then we kind of test them and then we pick. But it feels like a new layer comes in. So at this stage, when they were amazed about the animation, but then I don't know, 4 more revisions came in, they've seen it, they're like, oh yeah, and maybe we can. They get like, okay, let's a little fix there, or yes, here's perfect. And then you add the sound. They are all the time with the wow, with the wow, like, oh, now how it builds up. Or sound designer is a music compositor, so he's like always making sure that the music is reinforcing. And I brief him, I tell him like, when we've had long animations, I've told him like, this animation is too long, we're gonna kind of break them in chapters. So he kind of adds a new instrument in each chapter. So this way is a way to salvage the animation, because in the script they just didn't give up many words or many sentences or many scenes. So it's all the music. It also helps the audience breathe a bit. Like sometimes it adds some little quiet moments, and it kind of, because we are not just visual, but we also are hearing, and it just compacts everything. Like it wraps up everything really nicely. And then the sound effects. I love love reinforcing the atmospheric sounds and the movements. And although I do think animating to the movement is nice, but in this case, I don't know, I'm still fighting with that. And I love having the sounds of the people that they're like, wow, and like making it just fun. And like I will give him the brief, like this is all about showing a positive, like happy, friendly. So then they're also the sound effects are reinforcing this, right? So also the animal sounds, he's always aware that with us is a lot of animals that will be hurt, just so that we feel their presence. And yeah, there was also some subtle magical sounds. And that's about it. I will jump right now. I don't know if we make a pause here and then I jump to the schedule, or
So, I mean, we've got a couple questions that are about the project, but yeah, I mean, I think let's go ahead and kind of take a look at that schedule for a second and just sort of show people, while it's for a different project, like how organized you are about working through something like this, especially since you're managing a team of people and you're not just, keeping track of this in your own head.
Yeah. I don't think my head can handle this. And I think it's fair to say that I got really into doing this after my first project, that it was something about some environmental costs, and I did not do schedule. I just told them, yeah, I'll be out in about a month, or like, and their budget was kind of like not the one I wanted. So they said, well, we're going to give you a flexibility with time. You can make pauses and take other projects. And then all of a sudden, the project was expanded a year. And this budget didn't make sense anymore, because it's a headache. It's a thing in my head that I don't, I even will think about when I'm going on vacations. Can I take these vacations? Is like, can we move forward? And then they were making changes on the illustration when we were on the animation, and all of this, that was, that time, that was a lesson time. Always lose time. That is, no, that's a trap. Never take that. So yeah. So once the project gets approved, I sent on the contract, it says, we are going to give you a schedule and you need to approve this. And then any changes on the schedule, we are, of course, happy to do them, but they might affect the delivery date and they will affect the cost. And so here we have at the beginning, I even scheduled to schedule because it takes time. Right here, correct direction. I give them a day of feedback, but I always tell them, do you want longer feedback? Do you have vacation? Like, please check the dates. If you have vacations, or if you want even a week of feedback, it's fine. It wouldn't cost more, but we just need to know. So we're not scheduling a team around the schedule. We need to know if this is too tight, or and how to manage it. Right. So then they give feedback, then I adjust it. And this is actually happening right now. And today I got feedback for this. I'm like, but we can be a little flexible, right? But it's still like, if it's something that is not reasonable, that they are asking for changes on the creative direction, well, we are at the design, then this will cost. If today they ask for this, it's fine. I'm not gonna give them a new cost. Like, it's usually little words, little like notes that I need to write on the art direction document, and that's it. Right, and the storyboarding animatic that goes next, and we get the voice also in the middle of it. Oh, the script. Here is the voice. We're gonna get it, and here I want to do the animatic just to make sure that some scenes, it doesn't happen like it happened in my video, that I went ahead and illustrated, and then I was like, oh, this doesn't fit. And then I just recycled it for something else. But in this case, I have a team, I'm paying everybody, so I don't want to be wasting time. Right, so here we're gonna do an animatic with the voiceover. They have a week to adjust. So the sound at the beginning is super loose because there's time. And here, okay, so the storyboarding, then they give feedback on Tuesday. And then we might do adjustments, but usually most of it is approved. That's why I scheduled the designer to start parallel, because there are things to design already, for sure. And then we have another designer also coming in here. And yeah, I might add notes inside of this. I can add a note saying take 2 days, and we have 1 day of buffer too. Just to not hang myself in case, because this project is actually a 2.5-minute video. One that's also important to bring it up. That's why we have 2 designers, and it's gonna be detailed. It's gonna be lots of things I can't actually talk about yet. For like client privacy. Okay, so here the designers work. We send a rough here on the 15th, but this is the time they give feedback, on the 16th. And same here, 19, feedback on the 20th, and so on. So we make sure that they are parallel working on it. And when they give some ideas, if I don't agree with them, I normally test it to show it doesn't work. I don't want to seem like I'm against them. And you can say it's an interesting idea. But yeah, it's a nice idea, and here is how it works, and here's what I think it could be. Like, that's a way to kind of manage. I think that soft skills is also good to develop when working with a client, because make sure that everybody's having fun, because the schedule can get stressful. Like, not act too policey, but yes. And the great thing about having a schedule is that if something happens here that they say, oh, let's change on the concept that happened here, I don't say, no, I can't, because I already did it with my team. I don't speak it like this. I don't explain it like this. I say, we'd love to do it, yet let's check on regarding the contract. We would need to charge an extra for changing this, since from the approved schedule, because they approved it. I asked them to approve it when we send it, and they say, well, whenever you so we're very happy to do it, just like because of the schedule. So the schedule becomes a third member of the team. That is the mean one. That is the strict one. That is the police one.
And that's the thing that they agreed to. So it's easy for you to be able to show, like, yeah, if they drag their feet for a week on design feedback, that it's very easy for them to see just how much stuff that will affect.
Exactly. Yeah. And today I gotta remind them, hey, I was asking yesterday and I didn't get a reply, and you're like telling me this today. But it's fine. I'm gonna make an exception, because it's easy in this case. But also, when you make an exception, you can make exceptions all the time. So here, whenever it will actually cost to bring an animator, a designer for an extra day, then you don't make the exception anymore, right? Some clients are very, usually clients are very understanding with this. if they agree to it, really it becomes their responsibility as well. So they become accountable too. And so, yeah, here as you see, feedback, here we added a bigger pause because from my experience, when we've had, here maybe we have a lot of animation happening, it is better to give them, here where they have 2 days to say something. The video is not that long. They can watch it many times, show it to their wives, although that's not allowed. I asked that there's like a defined number of people giving feedback, not that really they say like, I saw it to my daughter, and otherwise have the daughter from day one. It's okay, seriously.
Yeah, getting a mysterious stakeholder at the end of the project that you never was aware of, that's never good.
Yeah, and the mysterious one didn't see the creative direction at the beginning,
right,
or all the concepts written and everything. And here I leave also buffer for extra animations adjustments, anything that needs to be polished. And then the sound design usually takes a day, but I add 2 to give flexibility to my sound designer, and the delivery here. And also like here, like this is a flexible schedule. I don't want my team to be burned, because if my team is happy, we have happy results. So I am also, this schedule protects my team. And it's very, very important. From the first project that I saw, that we did, that I realized, I started this because I wanted to do vegan stuff, but once my team became my family, it wasn't only about the vegan projects. Yes, we were not going to take, I don't know, some steakhouse or something, but we cannot give a good project if we have a team of people that don't care about each other working on it. So the team is the secret sauce, I'd say, and making sure that everybody's happy and becoming friends. And that is also not always as easy when you're remotely and not in the same place, but we're like trying to talk on Slack and just have fun also, not just with the client, but also internally.
I think I've heard a lot of people say that at the end of the day, people just want to work with other people that are nice to work with. Obviously, talent and proficiency in the skill sets and stuff is important. But if you're super talented and you're a pain in the butt to work with, usually not going to work out for you.
Yeah, we want people that are also nice to each other. Like, it's also good to see how they get along. That is very important. And what we send them also a list from the deliveries, like what we're doing, what they should expect from us. And then there's another list from here with the screenshot. I did screenshots, like Asana doesn't export it. This is a pain. Just so if you guys are wondering, there's no way to export this. Somebody talk to Asana team. And it'll be great if they could have this automated, because it's really annoying to do it. But in a way, I can, whenever I email them, I just say, okay, what's next? And I check on those dates and I tell them this is scheduled for what's next. But yeah, today that they came with a late feedback, I will tell them, are we sure we are locked on the schedule? Because just let me know, it's fine. But we're in time right now.
I love seeing all that, because it really helps reinforce how, it's one thing when you're working on a project all by yourself, even client work, you can tend to be flexible and you can push that other project that you have around and stuff. But when you're dealing with several people's time and having to make sure that they are set up to be able to work for the days that you're going to need them when you need them, and that the other things that they will need to be able to do their work will be ready, and that things will be approved. It's very important that you have this level of coordination going on, so that it's not just a garbage fire and everything's in panic mode all the time because you're trying to just ram everything together. So it's really good to see that and reinforce. And just to make the point, it's totally okay. Maybe you don't need to do it quite to that level, but even if you're just working on projects by yourself, having some kind of schedule both for yourself and to communicate to your client about what the timeline's going to be like and what happens at each stage and where they can't go backwards because it causes problems is really important.
Yeah, and right now, for example, we might be a bit ahead of schedule. I don't know, and I already alerted the illustrators, like, there's a little chance, just let me know. But only if it's flexible for them, because the client already scheduled is approved this other one, but I don't want to be moving them around, and they're freelancers. They would need the other days booked, you know.
I also really liked seeing, and I think we had a couple questions about this. I'd have to go up and find them. I really liked seeing your storyboard phase on the Manifesto project, and that was using boards, BOORDS, which I had mentioned earlier. And I believe that there is a free amount that you can use that. I really liked seeing your versions of storyboards. Kind of helps underscore how even when you're doing that, you know, what seems like a rough phase, that there are iterations to that, and you're refining things and working out which concepts are even worth moving forward and spending the time to design and stuff like that. And that communicating that to your client or your team or just yourself is a really big part of getting through that phase so that you know you're spending time on the right stuff.
Yeah, and it's great that boards allows allows comments. So you give this to the client, and I always add like a little fun password too. You can add passwords like, you know, the client name, BT 2022 or something. Like, always add that little spark. But yeah, I love boards, and I actually reached out to them at the beginning when we were just getting started, saying like, oh, we have a nonprofit client, and do you have maybe nonprofit prizes because it exists? And they gave me some very nice deal. And then yearly, I still pay that since 2017. Don't tell them.
So
well, our clients are good anyways.
Yeah. I think a couple people are asking how long it took to put together that Manifesto video.
I would say like all time together, because we had to pause for client work.
Yeah. Just kind of ballpark what you think it took, I guess.
About a bit over 2 months, 2 months and a half, maybe 2 months. Yeah.
I think you mentioned that now that I ask. Cool. I know people always sort of want, go ahead.
Maybe a bit, maybe 2 months and a half, because I was the problem with the script this time, because it was mine. And you know, this was great, because then I can have a lot of empathy for my client when they do their script, you know, and I tell them like, I know what it is. You want to say everything. Yeah.
That is tough. Yeah. Figuring out how to market yourself and where to draw those boundaries. And yeah. I had a couple questions about the transitions in there. And I think maybe it would be good to talk. Yeah, they were both sort of asking about like figuring out those transitions in the storyboard stage. Do you feel like you have anything to say about that aspect, or just, I think maybe just some guidance about how you go from A to B when you're just working with storyboards and you have to kind of figure out how you're going to get there?
Sometimes we think of transitions during the storyboarding part, and sometimes during the illustration, just because it makes more sense. Like whatever makes more sense. Like at the beginning, from the door, the one that is the hands like this was directly thought, right? But then the one of the V, that was all Ronaldo, my motion designer. Like he was like, I'm gonna do that. I'm like, sure, go for it. You know, I like to give each artist the freedom at the stage. So at some point, Nati, that is doing the illustrations, she's thinking of some transition, and we note it down, right? It's not just like, now, you know, I might agree, I might say like, oh, we can polish this up like this, or maybe, you know, it's just perfect, good to go. So it's really a team effort.
Awesome.
Sorry, there's no like 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no magic answer there, because sometimes you know at the beginning, and then sometimes there's things that just you kind of have to feel out once you're animating. But you always want to make sure, even when you are doing that, sometimes it's just a simple one. You just need to get from one point to another. But you still want to step back and make sure that you're doing that. Every transition has some sort of purpose, and isn't like flying in the face of the other visual messages you're communicating.
Right. It needs to make sure it needs to make sense with the concept. Like in our case, it was a journey, so we had a lot of camera going around, like going in, going back, down to the side. Yeah. So I mean, I now after so long I see it, I still think some places could have better transitions.
Don't we all? Projects are never finished, they're just due.
Yeah.
Coralie, did you have
Yeah,
chime in?
I kind of want to speak to that team effort, because I really like that you in the beginning went through and that you named out the entire team. That's, I mean, credit where credit is due, so that's really, really good. But I think also it's really cool for people to see my project and your project. And it's not because I don't want to start comparing or anything, but if there's anything that I wish that I realized when I started out is the difference between these projects. Because yours has, I don't know, I didn't count them, but like 7 or 8 people on them. People that are skilled in different areas. And my project, I did everything by myself. I am a better designer than I am an animator. And I kind of knew this, but I was still comparing myself to those kind of projects. I mean, the project is amazing. I really like it. But I think you can feel the difference between yours and mine. Again, not to compare, but just realistically what one person can do with their skills and what a team of people can do. So I think if anybody in the audience can take that away from this, I think that saves you a lot of frustration, because I had and I hear many of my colleagues have the same thing. Like, we always compare, but we need to realize that there's teams of people behind these things, and you're only one person with, of course, a set of skills. But yeah, I think that I just wanted to point that out, because I was like, yeah, that would have been so good to realize.
Oh, thank you, Coralie. But I think your project's great. I mean, at the end of the day, what the client wants is that their message is communicated.
Yeah, and I really don't want to compare. I just want to, because I took myself back. I saw your video and it looks amazing with the crazy transitions. And I remember seeing these type of videos in the beginning. I was like, that's what I need to do. And that's what I need to be able to do. And, it's unrealistic in the terms of I am one person, one person who is learning these skills one at a time. So I just wanted to point that out. And also that I really love the video.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to do also alone. And I said, no, I can't. I can't.
And I also really like that. Oh, sorry. I also really like that you spoke to diversion and inclusion, because that's something I also work with a lot when I work with characters, and it's something that keeps on coming up a lot. But yeah.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's such a great point. Especially for folks early in their careers, it's easy to look through Instagram and see see these projects that, I mean, I'm just going to throw out, a studio like Buck or something makes, and you're like, whoa, that maybe feel so intimidated, like I could never get there. But then, sometimes you step back and realize, like, oh, 30 people worked on that. Yeah. And, depending on the client, maybe they had, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this thing. The context definitely makes a big difference. But I think what's really important is being able to use these skills to tell the story and the message that you need to tell. And not every project needs to have $1 million budget and a giant team. Obviously there's a lot of times where maybe you're working on something that's more important to you personally, or telling your own personal story, where it makes a lot more sense to do it yourself. For a variety of reasons. And I see Yusef smiling a little bit, because this is an obvious segue to go into his segment here.
Yes, hello. I'm glad we got to look at those projects because, as you guys said, they were, client work, and I was invited to speak about a personal project that I worked on. So let me set up my slide and screen share now. All right, I guess I can screen share. Share screen. All right, can you guys
There
see
we
my
go.
slide?
Yep.
All right, here's some pictures of me throughout the years and the future. I wanted to share a personal project that I completed earlier this year. And I guess I want to tell you, if you're on this call right now, if you're watching this, you're creative, I really want to encourage you to consider creating personal work, because it kind of stretches a different muscle as a motion designer, as an animator, as a graphic designer, because you're doing work that's just specific to you, and you're the boss of it, and you can get a lot out of it. So when I first started out, I got into 3D. I started following EJ on YouTube. If you look up any Cinema 4D tutorial on YouTube, it's probably EJ who's the person behind it. And I just started, just making stuff because I love 3D. And what happened was, I was reminded of this quote. This is something that we all learn, like when we're in art school, or just like, reading about design and stuff. And that's, the enemy of art is the absence of limitations. And I like this quote because I feel like when I was first starting out, I kind of had this idea that I need to learn Cinema 4D, the 3D program, like inside and out, to be able to do what I want to do. And I realized that could take like months or even years. It could take forever, especially because these programs are updated frequently. So it's kind of impossible to learn them inside out. So what I'm trying to say is, I think you can make art with what you know right now. And then if you sort of approach work as, being a student, like always being a student, then you can learn in the background, you can continue to build your knowledge in the background, and your work will also evolve. So you'll take your audience with you on that journey, and they'll notice. So it'll be like, oh, this animation was so much better than the one you did before. And it's because during those two animations, you were learning all these new things. And so a great place, to learn new things. I wasn't asked to do a sales pitch during this call, but I will say that School of Motion has really elevated my work. There's a course specifically that I think everyone could benefit from, and that's Animation Bootcamp. And this course it teaches you the fundamentals of animation. There's certain rules that have to be in place for your work to look good. And it can be in any program. It can be in After Effects, it can be in Cinema 4D, it can even be like if you're doing stop motion in real life. And it's things like, when a ball hits the floor, it squashes and stretches, or when something is moving up, it slows down. When it comes down, it speeds up. These are all things that if you learn how to do them, it will make your work better. So just something to consider is, while you're making personal work, you can, improve your technical skills by learning programs, but you can also build on your knowledge, understanding how things should move in real life if you're doing animation and motion. So when I first started out, I asked myself, like, what can I make? And I focused on the things that I like. I'm a huge Madonna fan, so I made Madonna art. I love video games. So I made video game, like 8-bit like stuff. I did like a whole Super Mario thing, and that was really fun. But you sort of only go so far with it. It's fun to make, and you post it and your friends like it and stuff, but you only go so far with it. So what happened was, I heard a podcast by an illustrator who goes by Andy Pizza, and the title of the podcast was "Do the Opposite of Going Viral." And what he was essentially saying in that podcast was, when you make art, you can go for deep appeal or you can go for wide appeal. And I'm paraphrasing here, but the way that he described it was, for example, if you're doing something that's related to drugs, and the message is don't do drugs, the wide appeal message would be something that's like, don't do drugs, it's bad for you. But the deep appeal would be something that's much more personal. So it would be something like, when my brother would do drugs, he would steal cash from my wallet. And that just hits differently. That hits more personally. And people connect to it, even if they're different from you, they connect to that human experience with you. So I started to look within more, instead of like looking, outside of the things that I liked, I started to look within more. And I realized that a great place to start for ideas on what you can create is sort of the stories that you find yourself telling your friends over and over, like throughout the years. Like I had one story that when I was a little kid, there was this, in Iran, there was this like famous dancer, and she was on TV, and when she would dance, her outfits matched like the set, like the same color. And I loved watching her because I kind of wanted to be her. But it was funny because my dad think that I liked watching her because I had a crush on her. So I made an animation about that. And, and when I did that, I realized that this is sort of the path that I want to go down in this animation journey. But sometimes it's not as simple. Sometimes, the story is not as clear. You might want to show a feeling, or, you might want to make a statement about something. And so the beginning and the middle and the end might not be clear. And so the workflow that Kyle talked about at the beginning of this conversation is one that's, tested and proven to work. And it's one that I use at work when I work at Comedy Central, because, there are deadlines and you do have to move things along. But when you're working on personal projects, I found that my work has become more creative when I've been a little more fluid with that process. And so I kind of don't really use that process anymore in my personal work, just because the ideas seem to be richer when I go around it. So how do I develop an idea into something solid, and from nothing? And the answer is, actually, I'm supposed to say on this slide, the answer is by letting it happen with time. Time is like the water that you give the plant, the idea seed. So if you start with a seed, just giving it time is what's going to make it solidify. And if you are trying to get it done in a specific time frame, or if there is a deadline, one thing that helps is talking to people about it, brainstorming, getting things out. And I've been showing my animations to family and friends, and it's definitely changed them through the process. Even if they haven't commented on something specific, just watching them watch it kind of just informs like things that I need to do to it. Like I showed my friends the recent animation I was working on, and I could feel when I was watching it with them that it was too slow. And so it totally changed into something else. So I think sharing your work with friends and family is a great way to kind of get that process going. And another thing is finding idea developing tools. So traditionally this would be like, like a notebook, a sketch pad, and drawing and writing. But I felt inhibited by that process because I'm not a really good drawer. So my drawings didn't really look good. So when I would go through my journal, I didn't really feel like it was, I didn't feel like nurturing those ideas. And I couldn't even read my own handwriting most of the time. So I'm more comfortable with electronic devices and computers. So I use the Notepad app. I know 95% of us probably have iPhones. The Notepad app and the voice recorder are the two things that I use to develop ideas. Essentially, I just jot them down or record like a melody or a lyric that I'll like transfer into like a beat or something later, and it just stays there on its own. And style kind of works in the same way in that it develops in the background. But the difference with style is that it requires time, but it also requires a lot of hard work from you. It requires creating content. So Amber Vittoria has a really good quote, and it's, if you make something, it is in your style. Because people often ask, well, how do you come up with your style? How do I come up with my style? And if you make something, it's in your style. You already have that within you. It's just a matter of releasing it to the world by doing a lot of work. So also another good quote about style is Lucas Camargo of Untitled Army. You might have seen his work on Instagram and stuff. He said, like, style is like footsteps in the sand when you're walking on the beach. It's footsteps in the sand when you look back. So it's not something that you can see in front of you. It's something that when you look back at the work that you made, it's behind you and you can see it. It sort of develops like that. So I think it's good to not really think about style. I think it's better to focus on creating work, creating content. And one thing that helps with creating a lot of content to get there is figuring out what's fun, what you like to do. So for me, it's like, what makes it feel like play? What makes it feel like a video game that I want to play? And for me, Cinema 4D is one of those two things. when I open up Cinema 4D, the 3D program, it really does feel like I'm playing a video game. And that's why my process, I started with the whole like, storyboarding process, but it's now turned into something a little more fluid where I open the program and I kind of build in there as I go. What I need to start with is a solid idea. And I mentioned above how you can do that. So I found out that I really like making beats. And so the other thing that's been really helpful for me and made this fun is like this beat machine that I have. It's by Machine. And yeah, I mean, I just make beats with it. I don't know what else to say about that. And it helps with the process. So now I'm going to talk about the story of a fake computer. This is my latest animation. And I think I will probably touch upon some of the things that I mentioned in my presentation so far. And basically the way that this animation came about was I had done some 3D animations. And I had a friend who every time he saw one of them, he was really impressed by it. But he would ask me, was this made by a computer? And I would say yes. And then he would say, oh, okay. He seemed disappointed by my answer. Like when I said it was made by a computer, it was, like it wasn't art or it wasn't something that was real. And maybe it's because my characters kind of move like in a stiff way. They kind of move to the beat. And I thought maybe he thought it's stop motion, but it happened more than once. And I remember showing one of my friends, I got a text like when I posted one of them and it said, is this made by a computer? I showed my friend and he was like, what could he possibly mean? And so this was a funny story. So it was something that was on my mind. I kept telling everyone like, oh, this guy keeps asking me if I use the computer. And so that became the subject of my next animation. And what I thought I could do was, I thought I could make an animation that would make you feel emotional in some way when you watch it. But I would also remind you that I used a computer for this. So you really shouldn't feel anything when you watch it. And then I knew that if I did a good job, if I was successful, then the viewer or myself would feel something watching it. And then maybe that would help me get over my insecurity that I was now living with after, my friend asked me each time. So I started the process. I only knew that I wanted to just make scenes where I would have elements of a computer in it somehow. And I would show, I don't know, like really like intense, like in this scene, I was thinking it would be a restaurant where people start like falling over from like, I don't know, being poisoned or something. I was making stuff up to show something. And while this was happening, I have 3 sisters and we were going through a really difficult time. My dad had dementia and we were dealing with that. He was living in a memory center. And so every time one of my sisters would call me, they would call me with just, to tell me how they were doing. But there was always something in the call that reminded me of their trauma and their pain and my trauma and my pain. So, like, for example, my eldest sister called me and she was distraught. And she said, I was in the parking lot and, she put her car in park and it malfunctioned and it ran into a tree. Nobody was hurt, thank goodness, but I could feel the trauma in her voice. And so while this was happening, I thought, instead of like making up things and trying to like make up the story, I could sort of just show what's happening in real life. And so right away, and this is what I'm saying when I say like plant the seed for an idea. Like the seed in this instance was the emotion that I was trying to show or the mission that I had with this animation. And then it sort of just came on its own. So I started to come up with visuals right away for each person, for each of my siblings and my dad, who was in the memory center. Just showing him there was enough. And I quickly came up with a scene for each one. My eldest sister with the car accident in the parking lot. My middle sister was having a very intensive surgery. And my twin sister, I was with her when her pug was attacked, and that was very traumatic. So I had all these, and my dad with the memory center. So I had all these instances ready to go, but I couldn't think of a visual for myself because I didn't feel like there was any lingering trauma that I could show visually. And so what I did was I made the space for that idea. And that's what I'm telling you, if you like plant the seed, I made a space for that idea. This isn't for a client. I just sort of started working on the other scenes. I started building the scenes, and I'll show you what that looked like. And then I was watching an episode of The Office, and it was, if you know The Office, it was the scene where Dwight is talking to Michael. He's going through a breakup, and it's a very powerful scene because Dwight is speaking in a way he doesn't speak usually on the show. it's like a really powerful performance. And he tells Michael, there was a woman in your life who had a deep impact on you, and she left without saying goodbye. I think you should say goodbye. And when he said this, because I had made the space for that idea, I instantly got a visual in my head of something that had happened. And it was basically, I remember that when my stepmom had left, she came back to the house and I was just frozen in the room, unable to move. And that's how I knew it was trauma, looking back on it. And she took down all the pictures of herself that were in our house. And I remember coming out of the room and seeing all the empty spaces in the house and having like an ugly feeling about it. So I thought that could be the visual, that could be the visual trauma that I want to show for myself. That could be the centerpiece of the whole video. And so I was so happy remembering this memory, because even though it was something really painful, it solved the visual problem that I had with this animation. And it was also something so deep that I don't think I could have just sat and came up with it. So I started to really have confidence in this process. And I started to build each scene. So this is sort of like what it looked like. Like I mentioned to you, I wanted to have elements of a computer. So these are like computer keys, in the parking lot. And you can see like, I placed them. And then one thing that's really cool in Cinema 4D is there's a primitive of a figure. So if you want to start kind of like sketching in the program, you can place figures in different parts. And that's what I did for a lot of the scenes. And then when you build the characters, you can put them into place. And so I started doing that. And let's see, I wasn't sure how I was going to end. And I thought a little bit more about why that the picture taking down thing bothered me so much. And I realized it's because, traditionally when people die or leave your life, you put pictures of them up. And so I was reminded of how we had that in my house. My dad had put pictures up of family that was in Iran that we were no longer with, family that had died. And so I thought that could be a perfect way to end the video, is by showing pictures going up. And it can also reiterate the point of why the pictures coming down was so painful. And so that's the whole story of the animation. And it did help me get over my insecurity about using a computer. I feel really good about it now. And it's also really special to me because the photographs that are featured in the animation are of my dad's, or ones that he kept in our family album. And it's my mom's voice that's singing. She's also deceased. So it turned into like a really deep animation that's sort of a farewell to all my parents. And yeah, and I guess now we're going to show it. But when I posted it, I got a lot of responses, but the one that I liked the most was my cousin, my cousin Melinda said, "I'm glad your art is giving you a means to process your life." And I really liked when she said that, because it sort of put to words what I'm doing right now. And it's not, I don't know, it's what I'll be doing in a few years from now, but it's sort of like it made it clear to me what I'm up to right now and what's most meaningful to me right now. So I hope I said something here today that will help you find what's most meaningful to you, and to also encourage you to create art about it. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Yusef.
Thank you. So we're going to show that.
Yep, coming right up here.
There was a woman in your life who affected you very deeply. And she left before you could say goodbye. I think you need to say goodbye.
That was
Awesome.
speechless here.
Yeah, same. I saw your video before when we were talking about what we're going to talk about, and seeing it now again after you spoke, I'm getting a bit emotional about it because it's really beautiful. Thank you for opening up like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think sometimes it's hard to talk about. I was getting a little nervous because, I think that's why you make work, because sometimes you want to tell the stories without using words, and so it's harder to talk about than to make an animation about. But I honestly couldn't have done it without EJ. I told him this. EJ, he built something called Bendy Lens, which is still in progress, and that's what rigs characters. And so that's one thing that I knew I needed when I was first starting out, because I wanted to start doing stuff with characters right away, and I just couldn't figure out the rigging thing, and he made it easy. So I think that's another reason why it's really important to stay up on everything that comes out and try a lot of different things.
Well, I really loved. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just gonna say you can totally feel how much you care on the video, and like you transmit this is so strong. It's really, goosebumps.
Thank you.
Very
Well,
good.
I really love too how during your presentation you you really focused on a thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, which is how to get started with doing a personal project. How do you even figure out what idea to do? So I think between the really great quotes that you found and just sort of sharing this project with us, it was a really great insight into how that process can work. And obviously, everyone has different sources for that kind of stuff, but find something that matters to you and figure out, even if it's just a little thing at first, figure out how would you tell that to your friend maybe, or something like that. And then feels like maybe a place to start building on that.
For sure, yeah, and let it develop. I do think that, like I said, I think time is what made this so good. It took me like 1.5 years to work on it, but I think the actual labor of building everything was probably a month or 2 months work. It was waiting for the ideas to solidify. That was actually what took so long.
Someone actually had a question about that, like time frame and the planting the seed, and they were trying to get clarification as far as like, were you actively focusing on this in the entire time, or did you let it sit back and kind of grow on its own and have serendipity kind of be in play in this whole process?
Yeah, I sat back and let it just have its own way, because I work too during the day, and so I was busy with other things. But I think that's really essential in my process, and I want to encourage you to do the same, especially now, because you'll make something and it will look cool and you'll want to post it right away to kind of get that validation, kind of show your friends. But I think if you hold on to it, I think if you figure out why you're doing it, you'll tap into something that will give you work that might be deeper or even better. Like even if you were doing something that wasn't deep, that wasn't about your family, if there's a lot of people who just focus on good motion or good animation or good design. And even that stuff, it gets better with time. Like, you'll look at something, I'll look at the slides that I showed you guys today next week, and I'll be like, oh, I wish I could add this to that, because there's just some things that I think design and graphic design and motion, it's better when you have a lot of time for things to develop. And you might not have that at work, and that's why working with other people speeds up that process.
I mean, at the end of the day, personal projects should be fun. So why stress yourself out about your own personal project? If it takes 2 years to do it, it takes 2 years. Like I know Sakani Solomon, he's got a hold frame up, and his personal project piece took him, he was working on it on and off for 2 years. But I guess when you are talking about that kind of a time frame, I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, how do you make sure you finish it? Like, was it hard to finish it because it was such a long time frame, or like, how did you stay motivated to keep working on it and not like, this is taking too long, I'm just giving up?
Yeah, I think it was just because I knew what I was waiting for. Once the idea comes and the idea is like clear from beginning to end, then it is a matter of not being lazy and sitting down behind the computer and sacrificing, not hanging out with your friends and your family, being alone a lot, and doing that work. And that's sort of where I am now with the current animation. It's been so ideas been solved from beginning, middle, and end. Now I just need to sit and make it. So with Fake Computer, I knew that based on other animations that I'd done, that if I just wait, it would come. And so that's what I was waiting for.
So it was more like you had the story, but the visuals were just that little piece of the puzzle that you needed that time to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think it's also good if you do tap into what's fun for you. Like for me, it was the beat machine. When I saw that clip in the office, I immediately took the audio from it. I added it to like, you know, the buttons here, and I started like playing with it, and I made a beat, and that got the ball rolling. So if you tap into the things that make this fun for you and you have them accessible, and, you know, if you get excited about an idea and you jump on those things, you can sort of start the project that way and go from there.
There's another question here that came in about, I guess this is it's mainly for you, I guess, because it's about personal work. And if, you know, I'm sure a lot of students are, you know, coming out of college or taking any of our classes, or just, you know, beginning their career in motion design, they don't have any client projects. So the question was, you know, if you only have beautiful personal work, do you think that's enough to get real clients at some point?
No, I mean, I think this is debatable, but I personally do think that it's important to try to get a job or to get something professional going, because I did actually learn most of what I know, After Effects and things like that, on the job at Comedy Central. I remember like when I first started there, you know, coming out of school, the way that I was using the program was not the way that you're supposed to use it. So I do think you get some things from, you know, a professional gig that are essential. I think the personal could be like on the side, and I think you should aim for a job. Yeah.
Go ahead, please do.
I want to speak to that because I agree with you, Yusef. If you come out of school, then maybe it's good to go to a workplace and you know, spend some time there also for your soft skills. I think that's really interesting. But I think if somebody, for instance, has a few years of experience and kind of wants to redirect, for instance, you could actually use the container of a personal project for a simulated client project. And I've done that. And that has actually been part of the way that I've moved my way into this new direction. So I think that could be kind of like a side trick that you could use there. But yeah, I agree that some years of experience are definitely also good to have under your belt bucket.
Yeah, when you get a job or you take on a professional project, you're working with people who have been doing it, and so you can learn from them.
For sure.
Yeah, right. Or an internship as well.
And I've been really lucky because I've had a lot of really great art directors that I've worked for, and you know, I can think of 3 that really impacted my work. And even now when I'm working on my own stuff, I can sort of hear what they would say about it. So I think it's really important to try to get a job. If you can get a full-time job if you want to do motion design, I think that's the first place to start. And then I think, you know, on the side, continue to explore, continue to learn new things, and that's when you should start doing personal work as you're learning those things as well. Because then another thing that happens is you don't feel so attached to things at work. You might, like, sometimes I'll work on something at work and it will completely get killed, and I don't really get upset about it because, for one reason or another, I don't really get upset about it because I have, you know, Fake Computer at home that I'm working on, and that has my heart. So I do think job is key in the process.
I love how you mentioned about how you still sort of hear some of your previous art directors and how they would think about your work. And I think that's a really good way, as you know, there's no magic button for that kind of stuff, but as you gain experience, you do sort of have all these people that you've worked with, and, you know, in some ways it may just be things not to do, but things that kind of help guide your processes and your style and the way you work. And as someone that's TA'd a lot of school of motion courses myself, I feel like being a TA has a lot of those same benefits because you learn how to be on the other side of that. And I feel like it definitely made a big difference in my work, because now I always sort of think like, how would I, you know, critique this for somebody else? That definitely builds up that eye. And even if you aren't TAing at School of Motion or something, like have some friends that you, other motion design friends that you share projects with while they're in progress, when they're done, and give people feedback, because it means that, now you're building up favors and they'll give you feedback, but also giving people feedback on their projects is hugely beneficial to you.
Yeah, I actually saw in the chat, as everyone was presenting, a lot of people sharing their work and asking, if anyone can check it out. And I think that's why at School of Motion we have our little community group called The Square. And if you're a School of Motion alumni and you're not active in there, definitely get in there, because you can be doing that same thing, sharing your work. And it's a very supportive community. And we have a lot of our TAs that hang out in there as well and offer feedback and all that kind of good stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I can add.
Go ahead, Roxy,
I would like
please.
to add. I know that the best thing is to get the job directly. But when I started out, I started with an internship and then I jumped to freelance. It was really risky. I don't recommend it, but it worked out at the end. I just said I was a junior motion designer and I'm there to learn. And I was open to take other internships, but luckily I got other freelance opportunities. But slowly, and you get to know more people, and they also know your level. It wouldn't be good that you would just graduate and then you promote yourself as, even though your level is high, it's good to learn to work with other people. So start saying you're a junior. If you just want to freelance at the beginning, maybe in your city there aren't studios or places to get a full-time job or something.
Yeah, I definitely think internship and freelance falls under what I was saying, but definitely don't work for free, everyone. Don't work for free.
Unless you want to. I'll say my thing is don't work for cheap, but if you work for free on something that you want to do, then you control the terms there. So there are times where I think it's appropriate, but I agree that in general.
If you're in New York, don't work for free.
Right. Right.
You need that money to afford a closet space in New York City.
This is a valuable skill set. As like, if you take nothing else away from this, especially if you're new, one of the things you probably pick up today is how much work this takes, and how many overlapping skills are required to do this stuff well. And so value yourselves and make sure that the people that you work with are paying you appropriately for the work that you're doing.
Yeah, can I say one quick? I see these comments all the time, and I had a few questions about it too. But AI art, it's the big thing now. Do you really think AI art could have created what Yusef did? No, a computer's not going to have his life experiences to tell that story. And is a computer gonna know all these scientific words and how to visualize them in a right way that human beings would be able to understand and resonate with them? Like, people are telling these stories that resonate with human beings. So if you're worried about AI art, I think all of our three guests here today have proven that we are valuable. We do have talents. We do have our own stories and perspectives that no computer can ever replace. So hopefully that's a good, at
least for like another 5 years or so.
Yeah. Once it gets that good, then we're all screwed. No.
Well, I think that we can use it to support us. Like sometimes
Absolutely.
I'm looking for inspiration, and just a matter of opening that thing up, people are putting so much stuff in it. So like, oh, maybe, I don't know, the color palette of this is interesting or something. Like, not something that it will do the work, but it could be used for as an extra place where the art direction gets fed. Not the only place, but
it's another tool to add to your tool set. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, there's still like a mountain of questions here, but I feel like we've gone fairly long already, and it would probably take us another hour to answer all of these questions. Should we pick like two and kind of let that be our wrap up? Do you have a couple you've been sitting on, EJ?
I mean, there's some general
I've got a good one here. And this is something that all three of you will be able to speak to. A couple people had asked, how important are having these like case studies, this process stuff as part of your portfolio? Whoever wants to jump on it. I think the answer is obviously important. Go ahead, Coralie.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely important. Also for clients who come onto your website and not like, there's so many clients that are not like really aware of the entire production process. And if you show them that on your website, it can really help them understand also what they have to bring to the table for that first conversation. Because if they have no idea and they're like, yeah, we want a 2-minute video and we have 500 euros. So please, can you help us? I think it really already sets them off on a good start, and really you help, like you try educating them in that first way already on your website. So you don't have to have 10 of them. I think I personally have 1 and I'm aiming for 2. They also take a bit of work when you want to do them really thoroughly and well. So I think 1 or 2 is good enough, I think, in my opinion. But yeah, it definitely adds, I would say.
And even in personal work, like I said, like you might not use the same workflow that's the traditional workflow that we're discussing right now with the storyboards and stuff. You should be able to explain your process. One thing that happened to me that was really exciting was Giphy reached out to me to commission a piece. It was the first time that happened, and they wanted me to share some ideas with them. So I did have to show them kind of like storyboards, but a style frame or 2. So you have to be prepared to deliver something before it's done if you need to. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that it's also important for me when I'm hiring and I'm looking for an illustrator, for example. It's nice to see the sketches because I can see how they were thinking. And I think, well, maybe this person is the style, or maybe this person is going to be great for the storyboarding stage. But if I just see finished, I don't know how that process went. And so this would be for showing to studios or agencies. It's nice to show how your thinking is going through. It's going to be, because you're going to be there for like a whole month with them or a week or something. So they need to know that, or it works in your favor. And for clients, sometimes, usually from my experience, they read some of them, and some of them they barely read it. So it works. And what I've realized is nice to have is I have something that is like a mixed of these case studies or the process. So I showed, for example, this is the first step, the second step, but I have from different projects. So that way they don't think like all the projects that we're going to do are going to look like our manifesto video, right? So I even add the layer of like, if we were going to go through the 3D, or if we're going to have character animation. So kind of have like a marriage of all the processes that you have. It's nice to have to show to the clients. And when they reach out to you and you're already talking, you can add this PDF and say, this is our process.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sharing those thoughts on that. And there has been so much wisdom shared here today. I really love that we had these projects that are very different, but also had a lot of overlapping similarities. And I think I don't know, from where I'm sitting, it feels like it told a good story here and showed people what's important. So hopefully all of you that have stuck with us through all of this, which is still quite a few people, have learned a lot of stuff. And I want to take a second here to make sure that each of you get a little love and have a chance to kind of promote yourself. We'll drop your links in the chat again here. Let's start with Coralie. Just kind of give people, where they can follow you, where they can know more about you.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you all for joining. It's been really cool speaking here. So if you want to know more about my work, or you have questions about the stuff that I talked about today, or you want to know more about how to get into this part of the industry, definitely feel free to contact me. I am on Instagram with my regular name. I don't know how I found that handle, but Coralie Legrand. And my website is also just, very simple, coralielegrand.com. So You can find my contact there, my email. So feel free to reach out. I am a bit of a Labrador when it comes to people. I love meeting people. So feel free to shoot me an email. Yeah, if you want.
Awesome. Thank you. Roxy.
Hi. So for the studio, they can find with Vexquisit, at Vexquisit on Instagram. Facebook is kind of dead. Don't even bother. Vexquisit without the E at the end. And this year I also launched my own website where I offer mentoring, and Instagram is Roxy Velez, my nickname, with V at the end. Without the V at the end is my personal one where you can see my food and my cats. And
awesome,
thank you all for joining. It's been great.
Great. All right, Yusef.
I am Yusef4D.com, and I'm Yusef4D on all social media. And yeah, I hope I was clear. I got a little bit nervous at the beginning when I was talking about limitations, and what I was trying to say was just start making stuff now. Don't wait to know everything. Learn as you go.
Yeah, well, I think a flip side of that is that maybe one of the biggest barriers to making personal work is that you have no boundaries. You can do literally anything, and so it's really hard to figure out where to start. So that's a whole different tangent and topic, but maybe give yourself some limitations. Like we have a fun thing in the alumni community called 15-minute MoGraph, where you get a little prompt and you get 15 minutes, make whatever you make. It's okay if it's not beautiful. And sometimes just finding a place to start like that. Give yourself one word and start with that. But blank slate can be really, really hard.
Yeah, and actually October is coming up. So there's Inktober, there's Sketchtober, all these little events. There's even a hashtag to follow on Instagram, like draw this in your style, and like, prompts. And so there's all types of stuff like that to, get those limitations and have those keywords that you can start making stuff. So
I know another of our alumni, Kelly Kurtz, is doing Kurtztober, where she made her own prompts for people. So look her up.
Maybe it's Somtober. Let's get to work on that.
There you go. All right. Well, yeah, I should probably do, I guess, a semi-direct course plug. Like you got some great organic mentions in here. Obviously, School of Motion has courses that can teach you how to design for motion, how to use the software, how to animate, how to do 2D, 3D, how to illustrate for motion, how to do expressions. Like we have stuff in a whole bunch of different specialties, but I think the thing that is really important to remember on all this is at the end of the day, this is about storytelling, right? And whether it's knowing the tools well enough that they can get out of your way and you can tell what you need to tell, or learning about design communication and how those metaphors can bring things to life. This is all sort of this big tangly ball that makes these beautiful projects in the end. And you don't have to know all of it now, but figure out a place to kind of start, and you'll keep going from there, I guess, because we probably all love this crazy stuff that we do, and that's why we keep doing it. So hopefully same for all of you. All right, well, yeah, this has gone a little bit longer than I expected, but again, thank you so much to all of you viewers for hanging out with us here. Thank you for all of your questions and hanging out with us in the chat. And times a million thanks to you folks that have joined us today and shared your projects and your workflow and your wisdom with us. This has been really awesome to hear from each of you and get insights into your thought processes and motivations and all of that. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, for having us. So flattered.
Thank you.
Go out and make something.
Yeah, there you go. I was about to say, EJ, do you have any parting thoughts? But
there
yeah, go out and make something.
Make something. Let's go. Fired up after this.
Yeah, hopefully you feel inspired. Go pick something to make a project about and share it with us on Instagram or whatever you want to do.
Sign up for a class.
There you go. That too.
When does it start? October?
Oh yes, that's such a great time to mention that our registration is, you can register for our fall sessions or our winter sessions right now, and fall session begins October 10th. So there's quite a few different classes that you could be taking. Feel free to reach out to our support if you have questions about any of them. We try to be really responsive on social media, or if you write to us directly. So let us know if you need help guiding you into a particular course. We're just kind of figuring out where you need to go next.
And we do have, and this is a new thing that I think we can tease.
Yes, true.
We have animation boot camp's been mentioned a bunch of times. It's one of our most popular classes. It totally changed my creative life taking it because I am a self-taught artist, so I never learned animation fundamentals, but we actually have sneak peeks of our courses now where you can actually see the whole first video orientation video in animation boot camp. And I believe, Carla's there with the link there.
Carla's on it.
So check that out. That's a new thing we're doing. We're giving everyone a sneak peek into that class. So if you're on the fence and want to learn more, definitely check that out.
And I believe that's the only one that's available now, but we should have more sneak peeks coming up soon.
Yes.
Animation
Very
bootcamp
sneaky in the future.
was like game changing for me too. Like when I moved to Berlin, I didn't know where to start. I didn't know people, and I was like, "Okay, I have a free month. I'm gonna take this." I was like, I didn't know how to animate. It was great. Yeah.
Design Bootcamp was my introduction to School of Motion. I started as a paying customer, and as someone without a design background, that made such a huge impact in what I was able to do, and to be thoughtful about things instead of just kind of trying 50 different things that I sort of knew to like copy other people, but I wasn't being intentional about any of it. Okay. I don't think I missed anything else. Probably did. All right. I'm going to wrap this up for real here. Again, huge thank you to all of our guests here, to all of our viewers, anyone watching this later on a recording. I really hope that you took some valuable stuff from this. Please feel free to reach out to us, reach out to the guests here, tell them how much you loved their presentations. Let us know if you have any questions about anything, and we'll see you on another one of these hopefully in the near future. So take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Ciao.
Put it down.